Hi, I'm Yinka, and this is The Hurt Locker, a podcast where we open a door into men's mental health. Come and go.
And, something I've gotten better at in the last few years is saying no to people. It's something I used to be very bad at.
Why was that? Were you a people pleaser?
Yeah.
Would you consider yourself a private person?
Oh, thoroughly private person. And in the last couple of years, my stand-up has sort of pivoted to being more personal. And oh boy, did that make me feel good. Oh, I'm masked like a motherfucker.
You're listening to The Hurt Locker, the podcast that opens the door on men's mental health. And for tonight's guest, we have none other than comedian Stuart Laws. Stuart, welcome to The Hurt Locker.
Thanks for having me. It's roomy in here. What a lovely roomy space you've got in The Hurt Locker.
Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. I'm in New York at the moment, enjoying it out here, having a good time, and intrigued. I mean, I mentioned to a couple of people I was going on the Hurt Locker podcast, and because I'm so into films, people were like, "Oh, you going on to talk about?" There's a whole podcast dedicated to the film The Hurt Locker. And I was like, I think that would be, podcasts can sometimes stretch a concept, but that would be stretching it too far.
No, we're not about the film, but yes, welcome. So you're in New York. Is that on your jollies or?
So I work out here, semi-regularly now. And my partner is an American stand-up comedian. So I'm out here sort of on and off. And then hopefully more and more so as time goes on.
Okay, that's interesting. Tell me about America in your eyes. I mean, I've got my own views with regards to the new administration and that, and you're laughing there. Tell me about
Well, you know what? I've had to be, because my visa was in like, analysis or whatever it is that they do for like, a good 6-7 months, and it was all in the lead up to the election and then after the election and all of that. And I was like, well, I just have to sort of keep quiet on all of this front because, we expected it to go one way, it went the other way. And, demographically speaking, I'm in a group of people who I'm sure the administration pay very little attention to because of certain things about me. But at the same time, I was like, I would like to work there. So I just guess I have to stay quiet on the issues for a little while. Not that I'm a particularly political comedian or I'm not like out there on social media sort of, largely all I use social media for is to put out my content and to like do like little jokes about stuff like that. So it wasn't just suddenly like, oh, Stuart's normally really vocal about politics and now he's gone quiet. It was just business as usual, but just keeping a little eye on it. Like I remember a couple of years ago, I did a tweet that was like, there've just been like a spate of people like having their iPhones stolen and then posting up like their photos had been gone to their iCloud of the person that had stolen the phone.
Yes. And
I did one where I just found a bunch of photos of Donald Trump where it looks like he's taking a selfie of being like, I've just, my iPhone got stolen. I've just recovered these photos of the person who did it from my iCloud. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to just delete that one. It doesn't need to be up to imply that the 47th president of the United States of America stole my iPhone.
Would you say New Yorkers are explicitly or interested in politics, as it were? Because I've always had this assumption that, I don't know, maybe New York is a bit distant from the rest of the country, as it were. It's a bit edgy and separate.
Yeah, it feels like that. Like a bunch of people have asked me, how does it feel to be out there right now? And New York does feel like business largely as usual. Again, I guess that privilege of being sheltered from that somewhat, is helpful. That I'm sure there are a lot of people in New York who are feeling it, very badly, but largely as a whole, the city just seems to be carrying on in the same way that London has that vibe in the UK, in a way that, Liverpool has been a very political city for many, many years for a vast different, selection of reasons. in that, yeah, like if anything, London can sort of be its own island, and New York can be its own island in some ways.
Understand. So were you falling out of love with London and England, or?
No, my hope is that I will sort of split my time relatively evenly between the two. And, if I've got work in the UK, I'm there. And if I've got work in the US, that I'm there. And, I've always wanted to sort of live in America. I grew up watching films like The Hurt Locker and, American films, and sort of, had this sort of like low key obsession with it, that now it sort of is like a reality. I can really delve into sort of like what is actually quite mundane. It's very similar to London. It's very similar.
So tell me, who is Stuart Laws, for the benefit of our listeners? How would you describe yourself?
I'm a comedian. I'm a director, and I've been doing comedy now for like 15 years or so. And it started as a way of me sort of being able to like do creative stuff like immediately, with that quick turnaround of like, you have an idea, you say it on stage that evening. And then it has sort of evolved into this thing where I'm, directing all of the latest sort of comedy specials in the UK. So, like Sindhu V's, which was released on March 14th. And James Acaster's that was released last year on HBO and on Sky. Like we've filmed 4 of them already this year, that I've become sort of one of the go-to sort of directors with my production company for making comedy, which is great, and I really enjoy it. And I'm on tour with my own show now, and we'll be filming that at some point. So it's sort of this. At the moment, I say this to myself semi-regularly, is just like, keep an eye on what you're doing. Like, are you still maintaining sort of the standards that you want to achieve? Are you enjoying it? Because like, you can't keep doing as many things as you're doing for the rest of your life. You're going to have to eventually sort of narrow it down. And something I've gotten better at in the last few years is saying no to people. It's something I used to be very bad at.
Why was that? Were you a people pleaser?
Yeah. People pleaser, and like had like an element of like, well, I've got to keep on going. I've got to keep making this stuff, because what if this person is like the key to like the next level, or like I say no to it and it's like a really fun thing that I missed out on, that I'm like, well, I should just say yes to it, because it might be, that key thing. And, I think it's like a scarcity thing, isn't it? Where you're like, I'm not sure where my next paycheck's coming from, whether we're going to pay the bills this month or whatever. So you just say yes to it all. And I realized that I was like, burning myself out with that, where, you just can't then do everything that you want to do to the standard you want to do it at, because you've said yes to too many things.
How do you make that decision then, in terms of what to let go of and what to pursue?
It is a difficult one. I guess there's no hard and fast rule to it, is there? It's just if something really excites me, then bam, I'll do what I can. I'll move whatever I can to do it. But like, essentially, I basically have a blanket no rule unless something excites me so much that I'm like, I can't turn it down. And then obviously, aside from that, there are like, but when it comes to like directing or production company stuff, if the budget's there, we'll do it. Basically, we'll find a way to do it, because you've got to do that. You've got to pay your bills. But when it comes to me as a director, as a comedian, as an individual, I'll say yes if it excites me. But otherwise, it's like a blanket no, where like I will just reply and be like, look, I can't do this, but here's some suggestions on where you could go, or some advice. Where I'm like, if I am saying no, the least I can do is do 2 paragraphs explaining how this person could make this thing or do this thing. And that, hopefully is like assuages my people pleasingness.
Tell me about growing up then. Where was growing up for you? Did you have siblings?
Yeah, so I got a sister. Grew up in the sort of Slough area, which is like west of London, sort of near Heathrow. And then when we were younger, I was like 10 or 11, something like that, like moved to a place called Chalfont St. Peter. We got buffered around a few places because, we got like kicked out of a house because we couldn't afford the repayments, and, had to move in with grandparents, and then eventually landed on our feet in an area that then basically in the next 10 years became one of the like places to own property.
Desirable places to own property. Yes.
And basically we got catapulted into the middle class by that housing boom. I don't know how much planning went into it by my mum and dad, but like it felt like, I think they bought the house for like, £60,000, and then within 10 years it was worth over £200,000. Where you just go like, that is an absurd level of value increase.
Yes.
And so it was the four of us in an area that was was nice, and was like, I had a lot of friends. I went to the Christian youth group because I had a bunch of friends who went to it, so I was like, great, if I go to that, even though I'm not really a Christian, I can avoid having to make new friends. What a joy. When you're younger, I know it's not the same for everyone. Some people get very excited about making friends. I was very much like, okay, I've gone through the hardships of having to make friends with these lot. I've gone through that difficult phase. Now I'll just stick with them until, and I am still friends with like a bunch of them from that youth group, basically. We have a semi-regular poker group, where we meet up, and, everyone's in different phases of life. There's like, people, married with a couple of kids, some people that have gone sort of traveling and across the other side of the world. And, always fun to sort of catch up and sort of to know these people that you've known for sort of like, decades now.
Can I ask, as we're talking here, you strike me as a shy person. Would that be fair?
Yes. I mean, I was like, for ages, I was like, oh, I'm sort of shy. I didn't really know what the word introvert was. Found out about that, was like, oh, great. That's a word that sums me up. I'm happy with that. Did a little research into it. One of my good friends, Matt, is a big extrovert, and his wife is an introvert. And she was like very like useful in talking to him and being like, just so you know, Stuart's not being stubborn. His brain works a bit differently to yours. And so he's going to sort of, work in these ways a little bit. So like me and Matt, we went on holiday. We went to Iceland in 2018, I want to say, or maybe 2017. And our different sort of rhythms, where like he learned that he would just like leave me be for like the first good few hours of the day. Let me go out, have a coffee by myself, and he'd just sort of busy himself, maybe go out for a run or, a bit of an explore. And then knowing that I'd sort of, ease into the day, and then by the end would be sort of in good form.
Yes.
And you just sort of go, that's nice to have a friendship that's so long and developed that they can like adapt and learn those things about you. And I could, hopefully have, adjusted things, or like been aware of like things that he values in the reverse way.
Would you consider yourself a private person?
Oh, thoroughly private person. And it's literally been in the last couple of years with stand-up. I would, as someone who wants to be creative and wants to make things and wants to make things that are like connect with people, you have to sort of find personal things to touch on in that. But I've always been very like careful to sort of like put it behind a few layers of like artifice or fourth wall or stuff like that. And in the last couple of years, my stand-up has sort of pivoted to being more personal, which has been a thing I've been trying to do for years, but it had never really found the way of doing it. And now I am in an interesting position where still I want that privacy. I want to be able to, think about things, work on things, not have my entire life out there. But also if there's something about my experience that I feel is useful or like funny or could connect or be helpful, in some way. I do want to talk about that. And I think that's just a product of aging and a product of being more confident in who I am, basically.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. And I was going to add, it seems like you've been leaning over the last few years into this sense of vulnerability whilst exploring yourself.
Yeah. It's not. I'm trying to think. There was like someone that discussed it where it was like it's easier to be vulnerable on stage sometimes, and and in your public work, because there is that element of like, yeah, but maybe I am lying, so, or maybe I'm sort of telling, maybe it's not quite fully true. You sort of hide behind that a tiny bit, but it is like, so for some people, vulnerability, it comes very easily, and they can thrive off of that, and there's like an energy to it. And I think like for me, it was always like a slight element of like, well, you can't show that. You've just got to be pretty solid, keep on going, and sort of not rock the boat, as much as possible.
Okay, thank you. So, as you know, this is the Hurt Locker about men's mental health. I've been fortunate to interview loads of comedians, your side of the pond currently and in the UK, etc. And it always fascinates me how a lot of the comedians wear masks, as it were. I mean, you've alluded to that. They've worn masks. And I'm asking, what's in your Hurt Locker?
Interesting.
What have been your struggles?
So this, it's sort of, I guess there's a multitude of things, that people can call on, or, work out how, it all intersects in a way. And the show that I have just put out as a special sort of is like a culmination of like something that I've been like circling for many years.
Okay. What's it called, the show?
The show's called Stuart Laws, Is That Guy Still Going? Okay. And it is a show that is about being vulnerable, and it's about being, sort of easing into the swimming pool of vulnerability, sort of centimeter by centimeter. And, it ends basically with a discussion about grief. My father passed away just over 10 years ago now. And the show started as an exploration of a concept that, and I don't think is original, but it's something that I was like circling, that I was calling long grief. And this, to me, I was like, I don't want to talk about like, oh, he died and that was sad, because I feel like that is a pretty universal, it's pretty like rote thing where you just go, yeah, of course, someone it was a big part of your life passed away, is no longer here. Of course, you're going to be sad. To me, I was like, what's interesting is the feeling of like, I started writing the show maybe 5 years after he passed away, of this feeling that will never leave you, that there's a permanence to it. And it can arrive at unexpected times in unexpected ways, basically. And it could be as small as like recognizing the font on a shop front and it being somehow related to your relationship with them. And like you can go through, months, years, sort of just joking, being lighthearted about, their passing or them being dead. And then this tiny little thing can just sort of unlock a thing in your brain that suddenly, you feel all the pain, you feel all these various things to do with your relationship with them and their passing. And so that's sort of what the show became, this sort of exploration of permanence. In my mind, there are very few things in life that are permanent, but becoming a parent, you can't ever unbecome a parent, and grief being like these two linking things. And I'm someone who is child-free and has had a vasectomy to maintain that. That has been like a thing that I've been, very keen on ever since I can sort of remember, basically, and have explored in very many different ways, and have spoken to therapists about it. So the show was sort of a culmination of those two things, of being like, I am confident and happy to be child free, and I want to celebrate that. But also at the same time, I want to recognize that there's this other thing that, you know, all of us will go through and will experience, and it won't ever disappear, but that is okay, that it's okay to sort of have that be along with you on your journey.
That was the question I was going to ask you. Do you still grieve?
It certainly, and the thing I don't really discuss in the show as much, because I didn't think it was like narratively worth exploring, in that it was too complicated, as is everything, right? That everything is too complicated to compress down into a short story. Yes. So you have to pick and choose what you think is useful for the story. Is that my dad's and mine relationship was complicated, and, you know, there were lots of things that I disagreed with how he lived and how he acted, and those were things that I definitely didn't want to really get into in the show, because the show is intended for people who, I mean, it's intended to be funny, first of all. Let's get that out of the way. It's supposed to be a very funny show, but on the deeper level, I wanted it to connect with people who would be like, yes, I have, you know, this great relationship with my, you know, my sister, and they passed away, and I always think of them fondly, you know, and that I didn't want it to narrow down to only a complicated relationship. But that means that, like, for me, the randomness of it will, you know, can get tied into negative emotions more than positive, I would say. And like, there are times, you know, like we've got like photos. I bought a flat with my sister, and, you know, she lives with her partner now, but like together we'd sort of, you know, set the house up, and she hung like a nice little selection of photos of, you know, us growing up, you know, with our dad and things like that. And I can look at that and be like, that's nice. You know, I see it, you know, every day if I'm back in London. But I would say that, it's more likely, I think, you know, if there's like, I think it's like a sadness to do with what he wanted to achieve and didn't achieve, more than like, you know, a feeling of like a life not achieving what it wanted to. And that is, you know, something I feel very keen to reflect on myself, of being like, appreciate what you have achieved, and don't, you know, we're always moving forward in the creative industry to like the next thing. And sometimes you can then forget that actually 6 months ago your target was to get to here, but now you're here, all you're thinking about is what's over there. So you don't appreciate where you've got to.
And so my question then would be, because your father did not fulfill his dreams, his aspirations, has that been the catalyst for you to achieve your successes?
I think they were very supportive, you know, my mum and my dad. And, you know, I think there's something, you know, about that, of like, you know, my dad was from a very like, you know, very poor, like working class family from Peckham, that like he was trying to like, you know, get free of that. And so I think he saw in what I wanted as like a aspirational thing of like, yeah, like, good, you get out there and you do it. So it was like very supportive of that. And my mum as well, you know, has been like, and financially has been so supportive as well. And that is something that can never be ignored in this industry. If you have a financial sort of stability, it makes it far easier to achieve and take risks.
Absolutely.
But I would say like, there is definitely an element of me that was being like, I want to avoid the mistakes. I want to avoid, like, I think it's of externalizing blame in like you know, these people are to blame for this, and I didn't achieve this, and it's because of these people, or, you know, of sort of becoming embittered about the world.
Yes. And
I think it's especially easy in creative industries to view it as like, well, that person got it over me for this reason, or, you know, whatever. You need an element of like competitiveness and desire to succeed. But I would say that, like, you know, my dad kept on looking for like the get rich quick scheme version of
the
success.
Holy Grail. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
I like that. That is a little like nod of you, like, yep, I know this sort of person. I know this type of vibe. And it's like, you know, I obviously want success, and I want to appreciate successes that I've had, but I don't want to ever ignore the fact that it's always hard work, and you know, not getting bitter about the situation, about sort of, you know, not forgetting why you wanted to do things, you know, the happiness that it brings you, the excitement, and to just, you know, have that commitment to doing things without getting dragged down by sort of all of these surrounding things that are so easy to get dragged down by. And, you know,
can I ask, you made the comments about, you know, 6 months ago you wanted to get from A to B, now you're at B. You're already looking forward and all that. My question's this: do you recognize when you're present? Are you present?
Part of it, right, is the people pleasing thing, is that I can lose that sense of presence where, like, you know, I got to act in a BBC sitcom last year. It was a very small part, but I was very excited to do it. It was like a thing that I'd been wanting to do for a while, and I'd, you know, auditioned, got the part, and got to go and do it. But in amongst that was like 7 other things going on. And because I only had, like, you know, 5 or 6 lines, it wasn't like I had to do so much prep that I could only focus on it. It was almost like it was small enough to allow other stuff to get in.
Yes.
And there came a point on filming that where I did just have to, like, you know, I was on set for a day, and, you know, traveled up the day before, where I did actually try to shut down everything else to be like, no, this is something you've wanted and you've got there. So now you have to actually be here. And it's something that John Kearns, a brilliant stand-up comedian, has his advice to, like, newer comedians is just to be present. And I think doing stand-up, that is by far my most enjoyable state, where you get on stage and you are there and you're not thinking about other stuff. You are literally there for that room. You're not thinking about whether this gig will get you another gig. You're not thinking about whether there's someone in the audience who might get you to the next thing. You're literally, it's you, and you're in that pure thought sort of performance stage. And I want to be there as much as possible, but it can be tough sometimes, especially, like, you know, you go on tour and you're like, oh, right, okay, so I've got this tour date, but, like, I'm not selling very well in this tour date, so I need to sort of be thinking about how to promo that. And do I do something at the end of this show where I say, like, hey, if you know anyone in this town, let them know about the show, you know, and you're trying all these different things, or you're like, no, narrow it in.
Yes.
And I find it much easier, interestingly, when it's other people's projects. So, like, you know, directing comedy specials, I find it so much easier on the days or in the lead up to it, in the prep, of just narrowing my focus and being like, this is the project you're working on, and it's because it's for someone else and I don't want to let them down. Whereas I'm like, if I don't succeed fully in this stand-up show, I'm just letting myself down. That's fine. I can put up with that, because I'm, you know, maybe I'll be a bit of a dick to myself, but I'll be all right with it.
Okay. That's interesting. As I was listening to you talk, and I was thinking before, your self-talk sounds kind of positive, but sometimes, as you say, you can be a bit of a dick to yourself.
I can just give myself, I cannot foster the perfect conditions for my own success.
Okay.
Because I'm trying to make a success of so many different things, or trying to work on so many different things.
Okay.
And ultimately all of that does foster a larger success. But, you know, sometimes you do need to just go like, no, your focus is 100% on this thing right now.
Yes.
And so filming that special was like, it was at the end of the tour, so I knew that I would know the show inside out, but I also got my friend and brilliant comedian Nish Kumar to direct the special.
Okay.
And my partner, Chloe Radcliffe, you know, a fantastic comedian as well, sort of ran the show with me lots of times and taught me through so many different notes. And it was like a lot for me to like go to these people and get that help.
Okay, there's a question.
Yeah.
Do you ever say, put your hand up and say, can I get some help, please?
It's very rare. It's very rare. And it's something that I am trying to be better at. And also because I know that people like to help, people want to help, and it's not an altruistic thing because it feels good to help people, but
go on.
It doesn't come naturally. Okay.
What does love mean to you? Little curveball there.
Oh yeah, a lovely little curveball. It's someone. It's finding someone and a relationship and basically it's a team. That's a team where you are like committed to working together, understanding you are both individuals with different sort of requirements, different needs, different, you know, frailties, and loving all of those elements to it, no matter whether or not you're having, you know, the best fun or going through the most difficult time. And yeah, that I think is it's a team. It's feeling like you're a team and you're working together all the time.
And if your needs aren't being met, would you speak up?
Yeah, and that is something that in this relationship I've sort of achieved in a way that I've never achieved before in a relationship, because I would always hide my needs, and that is a thing that I've definitely changed, you know, in this relationship, and that, you know, has been embraced and sort of supported by them.
Does that make you reflect on previous relationships and the way that those turned out, or you're not thinking about the past?
It's trying not to as much. As far as I'm concerned, I've had like a bunch of like good relationships that I'm happy with, that like were like a product of their time.
Yes.
And I, you know, there's obviously things within those relationships that I would like be like, oh, that would be cool if that was different, or like I could have, you know, spoken up about that thing, or I could have helped them on that thing. But at the same time, you know, that is a thing in the past, and I don't think there's anything significant enough to be like, well, that, you know, is going to be a lasting bad thing in the world, you know. And, you know, there was like a relationship that I was in where she wanted to have kids, and I was trying to convince myself to want kids so as to sort of be what she wanted from the relationship, and tried to keep an open conversation about it, and just couldn't bring myself, could not do it. It you know, couldn't find it in me to want to have kids. And so we broke up, and you know, we talked about it, and that, you know, that's when I'd started to go to therapy to sort of discuss those sort of things. And actually it was weird, because therapy was the one that was what made me go, oh, it's all right to not want kids.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'd spent multiple years being like, okay, so you are the bad guy because you don't want kids, so you need to change your mind to make sure that you can give this very lovely person what they want. And I think they were like, and I think I totally understand, like, I'm not saying this is necessarily what they thought, but like, I think a lot of people around me who maybe, if they were like, weren't sure about why I didn't want kids, I think it's very easy to then take like, you know, like a not great relationship with your father who then passes away and be like, oh, that's why you don't want kids. And be like, no, it was there long before.
Yeah.
And like, I actually did think that for a while, and that it was actually going to therapy that like sort of made me embrace the positive sides of it and not be like looking for reasons why I didn't want, and to actually instead look for reasons why I did want. Right? You know, I think it's far better to focus on like, why do you want something rather than why don't you want something?
Absolutely.
And yeah, so she was like, you can go to therapy and discuss it. And I was like, okay, yeah, let's do that. And then I did, and then came out literally of the first session, was like, it's great that I don't want kids. And now I don't feel like a piece of shit. So it sort of like hastened the demise of that relationship, which, you know, she has gone on to have a kid with a very lovely person and seems to be in a great setup. So like, I look back at that and go like, what we had was really nice. I feel fully celebrate what we had, and like what I learned in that relationship was so useful for me. And I hope that there was like good things for her as well. And she is now in a place that she's got the things that she wanted that I couldn't give her. So I'm, you know, I don't look back on stuff particularly harshly, you know, and I am now just sort of in a position where I'm like, oh, great, I have a relationship that gives me things that I've wanted. I just didn't know that I had access to it. I just didn't realize that would be possible. And obviously there's going to be like pitfalls, and it doesn't always line up, because that is the nature of, you know, any relationship. If it's two individuals, you will be really close together at times, and then it will judder apart, and then you can bring yourself back together. It's about that desire to maintain the team and to do, you know, what is necessary to keep that going. And if you both want that, then it's easy.
What's your love language?
Now, I know what it isn't, and it's gift receiving, whatever it is.
Yes. Okay.
That makes me feel deeply uncomfortable.
Okay.
Yeah, when people buy gifts, I know that there's like a bunch of people who are so nice out there, and every time I see them, like, oh, I got you this thing, and like I have like a thing in me that goes, oh no, I'm not gonna like it. It's gonna, and it's like, sometimes it's just a chocolate bar, and I'm just like, well, that is not a chocolate bar that I like. Now I just have a chocolate bar I don't like, and I'm like, no. They were in a shop and they thought, oh, I'm seeing Stuart in a bit. That's nice. I'll get him this treat. So I have to run the math of what the actual thing was, rather than being like, I don't like lion bars, you piece of shit.
I don't like lion bars. Who invented them?
Yes. So maybe it's time. I think it's spending time, you know. Okay. I'm not like necessarily, I like a conversation. I like to sort of, you know, have that, but it's not necessarily all the time. I like to feel like you have a bit of time where you're not rushing off, and it's not even that you're necessarily focused 100% on each other. It's just you're in each other's company and it feels nice.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. One of the questions, because you've been so busy and successful, listening to previous comedians talk about the circuits, etc., do you ever feel as if you're a threat to your competitors?
Physically, obviously, I'm a huge threat. I'll beat the shit out of any of them.
But I think you know what I'm saying. Because your content, your output is quite prodigious.
I think luckily what happens is, so like, people have been very nice to me, because I feel like a desire to be a slight outsider, because I built up a lot of this stuff outside of like the normal network of things, that there's this indie sensibility, outsider sensibility, that I don't think I feel like a threat to people, because they're just like, he's this wacky guy who's just sort of doing his own thing, and we can just enjoy that. And it's not gonna, you know, Ramesh Ranganathan was out in New York and was a guest on my partner Chloe Radcliffe's web series, which is a chat show she does where she rides a tandem bike with the guest, and the guest is on the back. They ride around Central Park. They have a lovely chat. And Ramesh said some very nice things about me. And one of them was like, he was like, often I watch people's clips and have a sense of like, oh, I know what they're about to say, or like I watch it passively because I'm just like, oh, they're doing that thing that I wanted, there's all sorts of like things that comedians have. But what to focus on, like what he definitely said was like this positive thing, was like, I watch your stuff, Stuart, and I have no idea where it's going to go. And it's always so funny and so different to what I expect. And I was like, oh, that's very nice. Like, I do appreciate, and I think there is a bunch of comedians that do have that thought about me. And I think also, therefore, don't feel like I'm any sort of threat because I'm not going to be taking their TV jobs.
Yes. How was that? The feedback from Ramesh for you? How did you embrace it?
I feel like basically I'm not great at taking compliments, but I learned how to do that.
I know. That's why I asked.
I'm in that, and I think a lot of people can connect with this, where I want to be told that I'm very good and talented and the thing I've made is very good. But if I hear anyone say that, I want them to shut the fuck up and disappear into the ocean. And yeah, Ramesh saying it like, I think Ramesh is an incredible comedian, and he has a work ethic in the same way, like, and to hear that is like, oh great, there are like, I think this industry sees what I do, likes what I do, and that does feel nice. What I need to get better at is like converting that into like the work that I want to do, and I think it's slowly happening, and like commissioners and producers are paying more attention to what I'm doing.
Good.
And I'm hoping that sort of working over here in the US will be helpful in that regard. But I think I need to be better at like advocating for myself, and something that is something that Chloe has sort of taught me about, because for a start, she's American, so it comes naturally to them as a species.
Definitely it does.
But like, I think like a little of that sensibility is useful. And like, I know that I definitely had it, like, in my early 30s, I suddenly sort of went, oh, I'm not like a child who's sort of stumbling around, doesn't know what he's doing. I have a lot of experience now. And I think it's, and now that I'm 40, I'm like, well, I have the CV that proves that I know what I'm doing. And I can't, it's fucking annoying to deny that at this point. It's sort of this sort of like, and you see that with a bunch of people, they're like this like perpetual childhood, like, oh, I don't know, I'm so wacky, I don't really know what I'm doing. And you're like, no, you've got to acknowledge it. It's not charming anymore.
Absolutely.
And so, I am like better at that. And certainly dating an American has helped me get better at now advocating for myself, of being like, you are good. You aren't here because you're bad.
Okay, good. And that was that. I think my point there was going to be about how does it feel with that spotlight being shone on you?
So this, well, literally at the Edinburgh Fringe last year, I paid for PR for the first time, and that is the secret to success, as we've already, sort of skirted over. If you've got money, you can be more of a success. So I paid my money. I entered the lottery, which was, have you got a show that's good enough to warrant the extra people who are going to come and see it? And I think it turned out that I just about did have a show good enough, but what it meant was that I had a reviewer in every other day. And when you're at the Edinburgh Fringe, it already is an intense spotlight. You're doing 25 to 30 shows, to then have 15 reviewers come in, and they're all good reviews. Worst review was a 3-star. So I'm like, and the majority of them were 4 stars.
Where that 3-star reviewer lives?
Yeah, I've tracked him down, don't you worry. But like, that was like the first time at the Edinburgh Fringe where I felt a spotlight on me. And it was because the previews wrote that I was like, like an acclaimed, like old hand, like I was one of the old guard, like that I was coming up, and it was like one of these, as a comedian you can trust. that you know you're going to get something good because he's been doing it for so long and has already had like lots of acclaim. And it was the first time that I felt within the industry loop of this sort of Edinburgh Fringe. Like previously it would always be like I'd have like a reviewer or a publication would suddenly back me one time and, you know, would get a real nice review or like a push in an article. And this was the first time where it felt like, oh, I am a comedian that like is known and I can't ignore that anymore. And I felt the pressure of like, you got to get this show as good as you can. And because it was such a quick turnaround, because the previous show, you know, was my first one after COVID, had been writing it for like 5 years on and off, had done various other things, but had like been slow burning on it. That was 2023. So then my 2024 one was like, you done that one that got, you know, got real good reviews and really connected with people. Well, you got to write the next one in a year. You know, I learned a lot and, you know, lent on people more than I would have in previous years to sort of help, like, you know, workshop ideas. And it felt good. And it felt good to have be like, great, people are coming and more people are coming than ever. But it also did definitely, my reaction to that is to like, just go a bit quieter.
Do you ever struggle? Sort of, go on.
Sorry,
it's interesting.
Just to narrow in a little bit is sort of that, like, you sort of, you know, you shut down the senses a little bit, you just narrow it all in, so that you can just sort of be you knowing that you've got work to do. You can't just coast out there, that there is more eyes on you and that you don't want to embarrass yourself. You've got a bunch of people who are not relying on you, but like have a stake in you now. Yes. And that shouldn't be disrespected.
Does it feel like pressure?
Yes. Yeah. But I think in a good way, in that like I benefit from that, of being like, you got to do it because these people are sometimes that is like, I've got stuff made by literally being like, you know, roping someone in who I know I can't let down. Okay. To be involved in like, well, maybe it's filming a short film or it's like, you know, writing a script, and I go, oh, I'm going to get it to you by this date. That is just enough to like make me work a bit harder to actually do it.
Okay. If you, after the Hurt Locker tonight, somebody knocks at your door and it's your 10-year-old self, what would you say to him?
I'd say go and get your autism assessment now. See how it changes things. Yeah, and I imagine, yeah, I mean, it would definitely change things. And I wonder, I'm, you know, the problem is that you can't ever be like, that would make things better or that would make things worse. Like, we are where we are. And maybe a huge part of me would be like, I don't know, more aware or have had like better relationships, or, you know, had achieved more in what I want to with work, or there's like so many different ways that a person can change. And I deeply value having the awareness now of where I am, but I'm also very appreciative of the fact that it has come on a relatively like long journey, and that I think that all of those steps on that journey have been valuable, even when, you know, things have been tough. So yeah, it's always a difficult one. It's easy to be like, oh, that would make things so much better, but you just don't know how stuff changes.
Yes.
And you know, staying sort of confident in yourself and like supportive of yourself is more important than, you know, external factors.
When did you have your assessments?
So July and August 2023. So yeah, coming up for 2 years.
How did that feel?
It was, I think, challenging for my mum. I felt like it was like a step that I was like, I would like to get this done. It felt like a thing on my workload of like, I just need to get this ticked off, because I'd spent a good couple of years sort of building up to it and, you know, trying to get it booked in or working out whether or not I do it this way, speaking to people, researching, etc. So it became a thing of like, I would like to just get this done and to know either way. And I think for my mum, it was like a fairly intense experience where, you know, she was potentially finding out things about how my brain operates or how I operate, and was like feeling like worried about like what that meant for like my childhood and growing up and her interactions with me.
Was she looking back then?
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, as you probably know, you have to have someone there who has like known you for a significant amount of time.
Yes.
And so, yeah, she had perspectives on it. And it was interesting because it meant that like I got to find out that there were certain things that like I had managed to mask very successful. And oh boy, did that make me feel good. Oh, I masked like a motherfucker. So the actual assessments were, I was nervous, and I was like, you know, anxious about sort of discussing sort of private things, but was like, no, this is all sort of part of it. You know, this is all a normal part of it. It was like receiving the assessment 12-page PDF document, password protected though. So you ain't going to get in there.
Of course. Yes.
I'll give you the password though. That was more of like, you know, you're seeing like what your words are, but you're then passed through a psychiatrist and a psychologist, and their assessments of it. And then it was reflecting back on younger me. Absolutely. Of being like feeling sad for him, which I think I definitely found very challenging for a good while, of being like that poor kid who just didn't know, you know, didn't have appreciation of what was going on in their brain. Isn't just you're a weird kid. There is like neurological reasons for why these things are happening.
Absolutely. And I know, and because your take on the world is different, it can sometimes be, I'm assuming, isolating and lonely as well.
Yeah. And I think
you know.
No, I think that's fair. I think
you don't have to agree with me, you know, but.
No, I think it, like, especially you're going so many years sort of undiagnosed, where you just, you know, there would be times, you know, where I would like, I mean, it's a famous sort of like thing of people going to the bathroom at a party, not to go for a piss, but literally just to have a break, or just looking for those reasons, and just being like,
yes,
you know, those moments are going to be like times when you are like surrounded by people but feel disconnected.
100%.
And, you know, having more awareness of those things is both liberating, but also like more difficult for a while. It might take a good few years to really adjust to it, of being, you know, before I would just be going through and be like, well, I feel pretty weird, going to go to the bathroom. Or like I would like not unknowingly, but just be like, find myself in the bathroom, just back out, and then, hey, everyone, we're having a great time. Whereas now I'm stood there going, your senses are overstimulated, and this person is talking way too close to you, and that is causing some stress, or the conversation is so boring and small talky that there is nothing for you to grab onto here, and your brain is like fizzing on so many different things, that I'm like, and now I know that is what is happening, is like a slightly different difficulty to overcome. So like there is a fun, there is like a lightness to ignorance sometimes, and ultimately I want to know, and that is better. for me, and even in our relationship, my relationship, a huge part of it is discussing everything and having that openness is like ultimate. Yeah, and we won't always hit that, and hope sometimes you just need to do a speed catch up or whatever, or an argument that sort of accelerates, opens that back up. Yes. But like ultimately, knowledge is the thing that I want to have, because then it's makes it so much easier to make decisions or judgments on how you're feeling. So yeah, I am happy about it. It's just an adjustment period, really.
Yeah. And your relationship with your mum now?
It's good. I definitely think that there's like still like an uncertainty with people who are like close to me, to be like, well, what does this mean? Does this change things? How does it, occasionally with people, I've noticed like an unwillingness to use the word autism, where it's sort of like this like is it bad sort of thing. But like relationship with my mum has always been pretty solid, but it's always been pretty, and solid I think is the good term for it. And my mum and my sister will have arguments and I don't have arguments, and I'm like, well, what you get from that is you get like highs and lows.
Yes.
With me, you're going to get the 5 and 6 out of 10s.
Yes. Thank you for sharing. Can I ask, what would you sacrifice?
What would I sacrifice? What does it get me? Does it like get me eternal youth?
if
it's too late for that.
But there's a password to that one as well.
What would I sacrifice? I mean, there is stuff to do with autism that I'm like, would be fucking great to not have that. I don't know if that's what the question is really, but like there are definitely times, and like I feel like sometimes the communication around all this stuff is that you're supposed to just be like, no, it's positive and there is no bad side to it, and we be fully supportive of all disabilities, however slight it is. In my example, you just go, no, my life is more difficult because of it, so we shouldn't ignore that fact. It shouldn't just be like, you're autistic and that is great. You go, well, it's sort of shit in a lot of situations. It just sort of, just because I've learned sort of coping mechanisms or like ways to express it and to cope with, to deal with it, which I think are valuable and like are helpful to me, doesn't mean that as a whole holistic package, the entire thing is good.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Can I ask, who's the most important person in your life?
Chloe. Yeah.
If I said you're wrong, if I said it's you.
Well, then I'd say you're wrong. What the fuck's wrong with you? This guy can't be this guy.
It's you. You're the most important.
Yeah. Okay. It was a question. You got me.
Do you think? I don't think of it. I don't think it was a trick question.
It is good because you're like, I'm sure that some people immediately answer that. They go, oh, it's me.
Very few.
Is it? That's good. That's interesting.
Very, very few.
Yeah.
Something I picked up with you right at the beginning, that sensitivity about you. There's a beauty, and in a beauty you hold, you possess. That's
very, very kind. And did you notice there that I said thank you for the compliment? But I know, and then, averted eyes.
And then looked away. Yeah. I got onto that. Don't worry about it.
Because I was putting all of my energy into the compliment, which I know is socially the acceptable response that I need to do. But in doing that, I lost my power to make eye contact.
You're fucking amazing, Stuart.
That's very really kind. Thank you.
You really, really are.
You're very. Immediately, I was like, "Oh man, this guy can see me. This is stressful."
What did you
and
feel
then
like?
You just have this calming atmosphere that I was like, "Okay, yeah, you've done this. You know what you're doing with this. You got wisdom, but you've got this calmness that just says like, hey, I can see you, but it's okay."
And it is okay. Stuart Laws, thank you for being on The Hurt Locker.
Thanks for having me.
I enjoyed it. I hope you feel okay as well with being on it.
It's not a natural thing, but I'm like, it was very enjoyable. I'm sure you could tell that some of my answers are initially evasive before sort of finding the route into the nub of the matter.
I did, but you know what? It's been boss having you as a guest. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
The Hurt Locker is a safe space for our guests to openly share their mental health experiences. If you have been affected by any of the content in this recording, then please reach out for support. If it is an emergency, dial 999. If you would like to talk to somebody today, then please call the Samaritans on 116 123. Stay safe. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Hurt Locker. Please give us a rating or share with another listener. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Hurt Locker Pod.